976 World Energy Transitions Outlook 2023 1.5 Pathway。今回ですね、アイリーナのところのですね、文章、アウトルックの2023年というところを少しですね、チャット GPT で予約をしていましたと。で、この文章は、2023年に国際再生可能エネルギー機関、アイリーナが発表する予定のエネルギー転換の見通しの概要を紹介していますと、ウェトは、再生可能エネルギーの使用拡大やエネルギーの効率化に関するシナリオ分析を行い、世界のエネルギー転換に関する洞察を提供するものですと。ウェトによると、再生可能エネルギーは世界の需要の 70% を満たすことができると予想されていますと。再生可能エネルギーのコストはその他のエネルギー源よりも低下しており、今後十数年にわたってさらに低下する可能性があると指摘されています。また、世界の化石燃料の需要は2030年にピークを迎え、その後、徐々に減少することが予想されています。一方で、再生可能エネルギーの需要は引き続き増加すると見られています。これらの動向は、排出削減に寄与することが期待されています。さらに、レトでは、エネルギー需要の増加に対応するためには、エネルギーの効率化や電力網の改善などが必要であるとしてきています。また、再生可能エネルギーの普及には、政策上の支援が必要であり、政策決定者は再生可能エネルギーの技術開発や普及に対する投資を増やすことが求められているとされています。総合すると、レトによると、再生可能エネルギーは世界のエネルギー需要を満たすために必要不可欠であり、温室効果ガスの排出削減に貢献することが期待されます。政策の決定者は、再生可能エネルギーの技術開発や普及に対する投資を増やし、エネルギーの効率化や電力網の改善などにも注力する必要があるとされているというような要約でしたと。じゃあ、これに対してですね、英語の方でいくと、The energy transition is off track. The aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ripple effects of the Ukraine crisis have further compounded the challenges facing the transition. The stakes could not be higher. Every fraction of a degree in global temperature change can trigger significant and far-reaching consequences on natural systems, human society, and economics. Achieving the necessary course correction in the energy transition will require bold, transformative measures that reflects the urgency of the present situation. Current pledges and plans fall well short of IRENA's 1.7 pathway and will result in the emission gap of 16 gigatons in 2050. Nationally determined contributions, NDCs, long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategies, LTLEDs, and net zero targets, if fully implemented, could reduce carbon dioxide CO2 emissions by 6% by 2030 and 56% by 2050 compared to 2022 levels. However, most climate pledges are yet to be translated into detailed national strategies and plans implemented through policies and regulations or supported with sufficient funding. According to IRENA's planned energy scenario, the emissions gap is projected to reach 35 gigaton by 2050, and underscoring the urgent need for comprehensive action to accelerate the transition. Also, global investment across all energy transition technologies reached a record high of USD 1.3 trillion in 2022. Annual investment must more than quadrupled to remain on the 1.5 pathway, cesium pathway. Cumulative USD 150 trillion is required to realize the 1.7 target by 2050, averaging over USD 5 trillion in annual terms. Compared with the planned energy scenario, under which a cumulative investment of USD 103 trillion is required, an additional USD 47 trillion in cumulative investment is required by 2050 to remain on the 1.7 pathway. Around USD 1 trillion of annual investments is fossil fuels-based technologies currently being researched in the planned energy scenario must therefore be redirected toward energy transition technologies and infrastructure. Cumulative investments between now and 2030 need to total USD 44 trillion, with energy transition technologies representing 80% of the investment or USD 35 trillion. Total cumulative energy sector investment in the planned energy scenario until 2030 are USD 29 trillion. An additional cumulative investment of USD 15 trillion or an annual average investment of USD 1.79 billion would be needed in the 1.5 scenario until 2030. Furthermore, a change in the volume and types of investments is required under the 1.5 scenario to prioritize the energy transition and set the stage for the dramatic decrease in the fossil fuel share by 2050. Existing renewable power targets would increase total renewable power capacity to 5.4 terawatts by 2030, representing less than half of the 11.2 terawatts needed for a 1.5 pathway. There is significant scope for aligning and strengthening targets in the short term to provide policy clarity and certainty. In many cases, targets in national energy plans are yet to be aligned with those in NDCs. In addition, targets should be measurable and cover end use beyond power. Of the 183 parties with renewable energy components in their NDCs, only 143 had a qualified target, 108 for power and 31 for heating and cooling, transport, or cooking. Some progress is being made, notably in the power sector, with renewable representing 83% of capacity additions and reaching 40% of installed power generation globally in 2022. A total 295 gigawatts of renewables was added worldwide in 2022, the largest ever annual increase in renewable energy capacity. The strong business case for renewables, coupled with supportive and enabling policies, has sustained an upward trend in their share of the global energy mix. However, overall deployment remains centered on the limited number of countries and regions, with China, the European Union, and the United States accounting for 75% of capacity additions. Although large-scale developments of renewable energy are typically associated with countries that have well-developed power systems, it is essential to expand development elsewhere, especially in developing nations that lack access to electricity. Renewable energy investment remains concentrated in a limited number of countries and focused on only a few technologies. Investment in renewables reached USD 0.5 trillion in 2022. However, this is less than one-third of the average investment needed each year in renewables under the 1.7 scenario. Furthermore, in 2022, 85% of global renewable energy investment benefited less than 50% of the world population, and Africa accounted for only 1% of additional capacity in 2022. Investments in off-grid renewable energy solutions in 2021 amounted to USD 0.5 billion, far below the USD 15 billion needed annually to 2030. While many technology choices exist, most investments were in solar PV and wind power, with 95% channeled toward these technologies. Greater volumes of funding need to flow to other energy transition technologies such as biofuels, hydropower, and geothermal energy, as well as to sectors beyond power that have lower shares of renewables in total final energy consumption. Every year, the gap between what is required and what is implemented continues to grow. IRENA's energy transition indicators show significant acceleration is needed across energy sectors and technologies, from deeper end-use electrification of transport and heat to direct renewable use, energy efficiency, and infrastructure additions. Delays only added to the already considerable challenge of meeting IPCC-defined emission reduction levels in 2030 and 2050 for 1.5 trajectory. The lack of progress will also increase further investment needs and the costs of worsening climate change effect. Policymakers need to strike the right balance between reactive measures and proactive energy transition strategies that promote a most resilient, inclusive, and climate-safe system. Several of root causes of the current crisis stems from the fossil fuel-based energy system, such as over-dependence on a limited number of fuel exporters, insufficient and wasteful energy production and consumption, and the lack of accounting for environmental costs. An energy transition based on renewables can reduce or eliminate many of these. It is therefore the speed of the change that will determine the levels of energy security and economic and social reasons at the national level and offer new opportunities for improved human welfare globally. More can be done in the short term. While the energy transition undoubtedly requires time, there is significant potential to implement many of the available technology options today. Upward trends in the deployment of these solutions demonstrate that the technical and economical case is sound. However, comprehensive policies are needed across all sectors to ramp up deployment, as well as to instigate the systematic and structural overhaul required to realize climate and development objectives. The global stocktake at the 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28, must serve as a catalyst for scaling up actions over the following 5 years to implement existing energy transition options. Realist planning must provide room for innovation and additional policy action. A significant scale up of existing solutions is paramount. For example, advancing efficiency and electrification based on renewables is a cost-effective avenue for the power sector, as well as for transport and buildings. Clean hydrogen and its derivative and derivative and sustainable biomass solutions also offer various solutions for end use. Energy efficiency, electrification, grid expansion, and flexibility measures must be prioritized in the coming years. Energy efficiency in end-use sectors requires an average annual investment of USD 1.8 trillion under the 1.5 scenario. Electrification of end-use sectors, hydrogen, direct use of renewable and direct heat will require an additional USD 0.75 trillion annually. Accelerated end-use sector electrification will need to be combined with a continuous drive to grow renewable power capacity, with an allocation of some USD 1.3 trillion annually. This growth requires commensurate electricity network expansion and modernization at a cost of USD 0.5 trillion annually. By comparison, cumulative annual investment in fossil fuel supply and power capacity in the same period would amount to USD 1 trillion, halving current trends. The period following COP28 will be pivotal for efforts to curb climate change and achieve the sustainable development goals outlined in the 2030 agenda. The energy transition is crucial for delivering on economic, social, and environmental priorities. It is imperative for governments, financial institutions, and the private sector to urgently evaluate their aspirations, strategies, and implementation plans to realign the energy transition with its intended trajectory. A profound and systematic transition of the global energy system must occur within 30 years. This condensed time frame necessitates a strategic shift that expands beyond the focus on decarbonization of supply toward designing an energy system that not only reduce carbon emissions but also supports a resilient and inclusive global economy. As a result, planning needs to extend beyond border and the narrow confines of fuels to focus on requirements of the new energy system and the economics it will sustain. Focusing on the demand for clean energy and the enablers of renewables dominated system can help address the structural barriers that hinder progress in the energy transition. Purchasing fuel and sectoral mitigation measures is necessary but insufficient to transition to an energy system fit for the dominance of renewables. From energy production and transportation to processing coal, oil, and gas, the global infrastructure dedicated to energy will need to change. This will have impacts on power generation, industrial production, and manufacturing, as well as on rail, pipelines, shipyards, and other means of supplying fossil fuels. Switching the focus from fuels to system design will help accelerate the development of a new energy infrastructure and sustain its implementation. That's all. Thank you.